Hello students. So welcome to Unit 2 of Investment Management subject. So today we will be discussing the concept of risk. So different types of risk. Then we will be solving problems related to calculation of standard deviation, variance, correlation coefficient and other similar problems. First we'll understand the meaning of risk and return concepts. Well, before investing into any financial instrument, first we need to understand the risk and the return parameter associated with an individual. So risk may be defined as the possibility of suffering an injury or loss. So risk has been defined in different manners, though the underlying concept remains the same. In the context of business or financial world, it represents the uncertainty associated with an investment. In other words, risk is the possibility that the actual return on an investment may be different from the expected return. See, here I am explaining you actual return as well as expected return. See, expected return is what you are expecting from a financial instrument. But actual return is, it depends on the market fluctuations or market volatility. An important concept in this regard is the idea that an investment carrying a higher risk has the potential of higher yield. For example, a low risk investment such as Government of India dated securities or treasury bills has a low rate of return, while investment in blue chip companies in the stock market has the potential to make an investor very wealthy, but also has the potential to get one's entire investment lost. So either the ways, either over a period you can accumulate wealth, or if you have chosen wrong stocks in your portfolio, even you can lose the wealth, or you can lose even the amount whatever you have invested. So another way of defining risk is the threat or probability that an action or event may impact an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. Concept of risk. Risk is uncertainty of result, either from pursuing a future positive opportunity or an existing negative threat in an effort to meet a current goal. So the probability that an investment's actual return would be different from the expected return, including the ultimate risk of losing all of the original investment. Risk is usually measured by calculating the standard deviation of the historical returns or average returns of a specified investment. Risk is uncertainty of result, either from pursuing a future positive opportunity or an existing negative threat in an effort to meet a current goal. So types of risk broadly into two types: systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Well, now we'll understand systematic risk. The risk which is inherent to the entire market or system is termed as systematic risk or uncontrollable risk. It is also referred to as undiversifiable risk, as it affects the entire market and not one specific stock or industry. Please understand, students, a systematic risk will affect the entire market and not one specific stock or industry. Further, it is associated with economic, social, political, and legal aspects of all the securities in the economy. These factors are capable of exerting pressure on all the securities in the market in such a manner that all of them would move or change accordingly. Now, a systematic risk, it is also called as uncontrollable risk. The systematic risk affects the entire market and not one specific stock or industry. So now we'll understand the components of systematic risk. The first would be market risk, the second would be interest rate risk, and the third would be purchasing power risk. Then we will understand unsystematic risk in detail. See, unsystematic risk is also known as a diversifiable risk, as it can be managed and controlled, unlike systematic risk, which is difficult to be managed and controlled as it is widespread and covers the entire system. See, unsystematic risk, students, may be specified to an industry or company and is caused due to one of the following reasons, which I'll mention now. The first could be lack of managerial ability, then technological advancement in the process of production, then procurement of raw material, lack of human resources, and finally change in consumer preferences. See, some of the other factors also leading to the unsystematic risk may relate to financial leverage, that is debt equity ratio of the companies varies from each other. Then sources of funds and repayment of the loans also involve an element of risk. And sometimes the product may go out of fashion or become obsolete, which is a threat or risk for company or industry. So what we understood now is a systematic risk is also called as uncontrollable risk, which affects the entire market as a whole. Whereas unsystematic risk, also called as diversifiable risk, it can be damaged and controlled, unlike systematic risk, but which is difficult to be managed and controlled as it is widespread and covers the entire system. See, unsystematic risk may be specific to an industry or company and is caused due to the reasons what I mentioned just now. So after understanding systematic and unsystematic risk and even knowing about the components of systematic risk, now we'll study in detail about the components of the systematic risk, that is market risk, interest rate risk, purchasing power risk. So first we'll take market risk. See, market risk is the risk that the value of an investment will decrease due to the movements in the market factors. The reason for such uncertainty is market forces represented in two markets, which are bull market and the bear market. Market is influenced by a number of factors or events, some of which are tangible, which others are intangible. See, tangible factors are real setbacks like war, famine, volatility in the currency, earthquake, etc. Whereas intangible factors are not real events but are sentiment driven and at times equal to a tangible event. They are capable of driving the market in either direction. Then we'll study interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is the possibility of an unexpected change in the interest rates prevailing in the market, which affects the value of an investment adversely. Generally, the value of debt instruments like bonds, debentures, commercial papers is directly affected by interest rate risk. The movements in the market interest rates are promoted by the monetary policy of the central bank of the country, which leads to changes in the interest rate of treasury bills and government bonds. Purchasing power risk is the possible reduction in the purchasing power of the expected returns. Due to a high rate of inflation, there is erosion in the purchasing power of money, which results in decrease in the returns. Increase in the rate of inflation is swifter than the increase in the value of investment. So this results in punishment to the investors in the form of reduced return on their investment. A rising rate of inflation poses a threat to the investor as it is a risk or possible loss for him or her. So these are the components of systematic risk. Now, after studying the components of systematic risk and understanding the meaning of systematic risk, now we'll again go to the unsystematic risk. See, as I mentioned, it is also known as diversifiable risk as it can be managed and controlled. Please understand, unsystematic risk can be managed and controlled, unlike systematic risk, which is difficult to be managed and controlled. Unsystematic risk, as I mentioned to you all earlier, that it refers to a specific, it is very specific to an industry or company. Now, after understanding unsystematic risk, we will now understand the concepts of unsystematic risk, that is business risk and financial risk. So unsystematic risk can be minimized, systematic risk can be managed. So first we'll understand business risk now. So business risk is a part of unsystematic risk which basically comes from the operational activities of the business. Due to certain inbuilt deficiencies in the operations of a company, its competitive advantage over the rivals is lost, affecting the force of its expansion and or smooth flow of revenue. Business risk may arise due to internal causes or external causes, and accordingly it is categorized under two heads. So which are they? Number one, internal business risk, and number two, external business risk. So what we are studying now, we are understanding the components of unsystematic risk. So the first component is business risk. So business risk is categorized under two heads, that is internal business risk and external business risk. Internal business risk is related to the operational effectiveness of a company. So operational effectiveness varies from company to company and is influenced by the factors such as sales variation, R&D, that is research and development, personnel management, fixed cost and single product. External business risk, that is the second head under the business risk. See, external business risk are the risk caused by the circumstances which are external to a company's business. The company has no control over these circumstances or factors, which are social and regulatory factors, political risk and business cycle. Then we'll understand the second component of unsystematic risk, that is financial risk. Financial risk of a company is closely related to the manner in which the funds have been raised to design its capital structure. So financial strength of a company depends upon the level and stability of its earnings. An inappropriate capital structure may not be able to ensure stable earnings, and as a result of such variation in earnings, the company would be exposed to financial risk. See, financial risk, students, may be again classified into the following below mentioned subdivision. Like we have credit risk, currency risk, country risk, liquidity risk and callable risk. We'll understand each type of subdivisions in detail. So what we are studying now, we are understanding financial risk, and financial risk subdivisions we are studying now. The first subdivision of financial risk is credit risk. See, as the name only suggests, credit risk arises from the possibility of a borrower defaulting in timely payments, as and when it falls due or makes payments with delay. Failure on the part of a borrower in repayment is a credit risk which directly affects the probability of the lender. Then the second subdivision of financial risk is currency risk. The possibility of a loss due to unfavorable movements of exchange rate in foreign exchange market, either short term or long term, is referred to as currency risk. Then we have the third subdivision of financial risk, country risk. Country risk is a collection of risk associated with doing business in foreign country. It varies from one country to another. Some countries include risks such as political risk, regulatory risk and economic risk. So what we are studying now, the third subdivision of financial risk, that is country risk. So I'll repeat once again, students. Country risk is a collection of risk associated with doing business in a foreign country. It varies from one country to another. So some country risk, like what I'll be discussing now, is political risk, regulatory risk, and economic risk. So first I'll take political risk. See, political risk arises from the possibility of downfall in the financial health of a country as a result of unstable government or change of government or distress regarding government's actions. The second type of country risk, that is regulatory risk. The risk arising out of the tension that new regulation should be introduced or the existing regulation would be implemented in a more rigorous manner is termed as regulatory risk. And then the third one is called as economic risk. The possibility of a country's economic condition becoming negative and having a damaging impact on its financial health, especially on inflation, interest rate and forex rate, is termed as economic risk. The fourth subdivision of financial risk is liquidity risk. Liquidity risk is the probability of a security market being non-marketable, making it difficult for the holders of such security to sell them at a fair price. The fifth subdivision of financial risk is callable risk. The risk faced by holder of a callable bond, that the bond issuer will take advantage of the callable bond feature and redeem the issue prior to maturity. This means the bondholder will receive payment on the value of the bond and in most cases will be reinvesting in less favorable environment. One, what you can say is one with the lower interest rate. So unsystematic risk overall, if I want to say, it is a risk that is specific to a company or a particular sector. So this type of risk could include dramatic events such as a strike, a natural disaster such as fire, or something as simple as slumping sales. Two common sources of unsystematic risk are business risk and financial risk. So diversification can greatly minimize or reduce unsystematic risk from a portfolio. It is unlikely that events would happen in every firm at the same time. Therefore, by diversifying, one can reduce their risk. Always remember, students, diversification helps to reduce the risk. There is no reward for taking on unneeded unsystematic risk. So portfolio risk and return. So portfolio is a combination of securities which includes stocks, bonds and money market instruments. The process of blending together the broad asset classes so as to obtain optimum return with minimum risk is called portfolio construction. Please understand, optimum return with minimum risk is called as portfolio construction. So we should be in a position to understand the risk and return parameters of an individual. Then based on his risk and return, we have to construct the portfolio. So what we have studied risk, we have studied the various types of risk. Now they can ask you, like, explain the difference between systematic and unsystematic risk also. So the systematic risk cannot be diversified away through investment in domestic securities, whereas the unsystematic risk can be diversified away in domestic securities. Systematic risk can be measured by beta, whereas unsystematic risk is measured by standard deviation. So some of the basic differences also you should be understanding between systematic and unsystematic risk. Okay, students, after understanding the theoretical concepts of risk, return, the various types of risk, now we'll solve a problem related to risk and return that is computations of standard deviation, variance and returns. So as you can see in the question, now let us take two companies A and B to calculate the expected returns. So what they have given us in the question, they have given us two companies, company A and company B. So in company A, if you can see there, they have given the returns in the first column, then probability, P is probability. Then what we need to calculate, probability into return. So 6 multiplied by 0.1 is 0.6, 7 multiplied by 0.25 is 1.75, 8 multiplied by 0.3 is 2.4, 9 multiplied by 0.25 is 2.25, 10 multiplied by 0.10 is 1. So then you can see, if I add probability into R, I get the summation of expected returns, which is equal to 8%. Similar way, for the company B, they have given returns, probability. So what I need to calculate, probability into return, the summation of this will give me expected returns. So all you can see there, for company B, the return in the first column, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, what they have given. And the probability is 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.2 and 0.1. If I keep on multiplying returns and probability, so for the first row, 4 multiplied by 0.1 is 0.4, 6 multiplied by 0.2 is 1.2. Like that, if I keep on multiplying, and then I need to do the summation of probability multiplied by return column. So I get the expected return as 8%. So in the example or the problem given above, the expected means are the same in both the companies. The A company's return varies from 6% to 10%. If you can see, A company's return R, what they have given, it varies from 6 to 10%, while the B company's return, it varies from 4% to 12%. Now in the next part, we will understand how to calculate the variance and the standard deviation. Remember some of the problems I have taken from the book Punitavati Pandian. Now after calculating expected return, students, which we got 8% in both the companies, for both the companies, that is company A and company B. So now we will calculate the standard deviation and variance. See, please understand, sigma is equal to square root of summation of I is equal to 1 to n probability multiplied by R minus E of R whole square. I'll repeat once again. To find out the variation, sigma is equal to square root of summation of I is equal to 1 to n probability multiplied by R minus expected return of whole square. Variance, that is sigma square, is equal to summation of I is equal to 1 to n probability multiplied by R, that is return, minus expected return of whole square. Please understand, students, sigma is nothing but standard deviation is equal to square root of variance or square root of sigma square. So this is very important to understand. Standard deviation is equal to square root of variance, and variance symbolically will be written as sigma square. Okay. Now, after understanding what all things we require in the formula, then we will construct the table as shown in the diagram. First, we'll calculate for company A, then we'll go for company B. So whatever they have given in the problem, so please understand, we are writing returns and probability for company A. As you can see there, returns and probability are 6, the first column what I am explaining you, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the probability 0.1, 0.25, 0.3, 0.25 and 0.1. Then we will calculate R minus expected return of what? Expected return of company A. Say expected return what we got is 8. So 6 minus 8 is minus 2. In the same way, 7 minus 8 is minus 1. I am explaining you the third column, students, that is r minus e of r. Then 9 minus e of 8 is 1 and 10 minus 8 is 2. Then after that I am squaring the third column, that is returns minus expected return whole square. So minus 2 square is what? Minus into minus plus. So 4. Minus 1 square is 1. 0 square is 0. 1 square is 1 and 2 square is 4. Then after that I am multiplying probability to fourth column. As you can see in the fifth column over there, probability multiplied by r minus e of r whole square. So what is probability? Where is probability? It is in the second column, if you can see, that is 0.1. So 4 multiplied by 0.1 is 0.4. 1 multiplied by 0.25 is 0.25. In the same way, I keep on multiplying the second and the fourth column. The summation of the fifth column will give me 1.30. So 1.30 is what? It is the variance. Please understand, students. 1.30 is the variance. Now how do you calculate standard deviation? That is sigma. Standard deviation is equal to square root of variance. That is square root of 1.30. So if you calculate square root of 1.30, it is equal to 1.14. So I got the standard deviation of company A, which is equal to 1.14. So as you can see there, in the examination also, you have to write the conclusion for problem 1 or the example 1, just now what we have solved. Better you can use a tabular form to tell us, which will give a clear idea that for the company A, the expected return was 8 and the variance is 1.3 and the standard deviation is 1.14. And for the company B, the expected return is 8, variance is 4.8 and the standard deviation is 2.19. See, the expected return are same for both A and B company, but the variations in expected return are different. As you can see there, the company's A's expected return is stable, and company B also we got 8%, but the variance differs. That is, variance is 1.3 for security company A and 4.8 for company B. Variance means what? Variation, right? So if you can see there, the standard deviation of A is lesser compared to the standard deviation of B. Clear, all of you? So after understanding an example to solve the expected return, variance and standard deviation, now we'll understand the few concepts and formulas related to calculation of a return. See, first we'll understand the characteristic regression line, that is called as CRL. The characteristic regression line is a simple linear regression model estimated for a particular stock against the market return, index return, to measure its diversifiable and undiversifiable risk. How do you call that? RI, that is return, is equal to alpha plus beta RM plus EI, where RI is return of ith stock, alpha is the intercept, beta is the slope of the ith stock, RM is the market return or market return of market index, and EI is the error term. See, now what I am telling you, please understand, student, the security return, how do you compute that? So today's security return is equal to today's price minus yesterday's price whole divided by yesterday's price multiplied by 100. Why I am multiplying it by 100? I want in percentage, right? So similarly, today's market return is equal to today's index minus yesterday's index divided by yesterday's index multiplied by 100. See, in the same way, if you want daily returns, weekly returns, it can be calculated by using this week's and last week's prices instead of today's and yesterday's price in the above mentioned formula. And even monthly return can also be calculated. Those who are planning to do their project related to risk and return calculation, so please understand the more you take the input for this. Like if you are taking the 5-year data, if you are calculating the returns based, and if you are calculating returns, and if you are collecting the every day the closing and the opening prices, then your result will be accurate. So the more data you collect, the more accurate will be your result. Okay. Now how to calculate beta and alpha coefficient? To calculate the beta, the returns have to be calculated first. Then using the formula, the beta and alpha coefficient can be calculated. See, always remember, I'll repeat, beta is equal to n multiplied by summation of xy minus summation of x into summation of y whole divided by n summation of x square minus summation of x whole square. Whereas alpha can be calculated as y bar minus beta x bar. So what is this y bar and x bar over there? Y bar is equal to summation of y divided by n, and x bar is equal to summation of x divided by n. So when I take the problem, I'll explain you what is this beta and what should be the value of this beta. If beta is equal to 1, what happens? If beta greater than 1, what happens? And if beta less than 1, what happens? And what are these xy parameters also, I'll explain you when I take the problem now. Beta is the slope of the characteristic regression line. Beta describes the relationship between the stock's return and the index return. Beta indicates that 1% change in the index return would cause 1.19% change in the stock return. We'll take an example of the same. So if beta is equal to plus 1.0, 1% change in market index return causes exactly 1% change in the stock return. It indicates that the stock moves in tandem. In tandem means what? Parallel to the market. If beta is equal to plus 0.5, then 1% change in the market index return causes 0.5% change in the stock return. The stock is less volatile compared to the market. Beta is equal to plus 2.0. So what is the inference? 1% change in the market index return causes 2% change in the stock return. The stock return will be more volatile, and when there is a decline of 10% in the market return, the stock with a beta of 2 would give a negative return of 20%. The stocks with more than 1 beta value is considered to be very risky. Then negative beta value indicates that the stock return moves in the opposite direction compared to the market return. A stock with a negative beta of -1 would provide a return of 10% if the market return declines by 10% and vice versa. Stocks with negative beta resist the decline in the market return, but stocks with negative returns are very rare. Alpha. The intercept of the characteristic regression line is alpha. That is, the distance between the intersection and the horizontal axis. It indicates that the stock return is independent of the market return. Remember students, a positive value of alpha is a healthy sign. A positive alpha value would yield a profitable return. So according to the portfolio theory, in a well-diversified portfolio, the average value of alpha of all stocks turns out to be 0. Then correlation. The correlation coefficient measures the nature and the extent of relationship between the stock market index return and the stock in particular period. So how do you calculate the correlation coefficient R? R is equal to n sigma xy minus sigma x into sigma y whole divided by square root of n sigma x square minus sigma x whole square into square root of n sigma y square minus sigma y whole square. So correlation coefficient means what? So we need to identify the correlation or the movement that exists between an individual stock as well as the index. So problem number 2, the rate of return of equity share of W Limited for 6 years are given below. So calculate the average rate of return, the standard deviation and the variance. So what they have given us in the problem, so where they have given us the number of years and the ROR, which is 12%, 18%, minus 6% for 2007, 20, 22, and for 2010 it is 24. So what we are required to calculate, students? We are required to calculate the average rate of return and standard deviation as well as variance. So in the next part, I'll show you the solution for the same problem. So how do you calculate average rate of return? That is summation of R divided by how many years are there? From 2005 to 2010, it is 6 years, right? So if I do summation of R, which is equal to 90 divided by 6, so I got 15%. Please understand, when I say summation of R, it is 12 plus 18 minus 6 plus 20 plus 22 plus 24 divided by n. N is the number of years. So how many years they have given in the problem? That is for, if you see, from 2005 to 2010, it is 6 years. Then we will go to calculate variance. So remember, only when we calculate variance, then we will do standard deviation is equal to square root of variance. So first we will calculate variance, that is sigma square. So in the first column, it is the number of years, that is 2005 to 2010. Then R, so whatever they have given in the problem, I am just noting it down. 12, 18, minus 6, 20, 22, 24. Then we will call R minus R bar. So what is R bar here? R bar is whatever we have calculated, that is average rate of return, that is 15%, right? So 12 minus 15 is what? Minus 3. 18 minus 15 is plus 3. Minus 6 minus 15 is minus 21. 20 minus 15 is 5. 22 minus 15 is 7. And similarly 24 minus 15 is 9. That is in the third column, R minus R bar. Then in the fourth column, we have to square it, that is R minus R bar whole square. Minus 3 whole square, that is minus into minus will become plus 9. 3 square is 9. 21 square is 441. 5 square is 25. 7 square is 49. And 9 square is 81. So we got R minus R bar whole square. Now if I summate, that is if I summate the fourth column, that is summation of R minus R bar whole square, which is equal to 614. So the variance is 614. And what is standard deviation? Standard deviation is equal to square root of variance. So what is square root of variance? Square root of 614, which is equal to 24.77. So we have to write the conclusion for each problem even in the examination. So for company W, ARR is equal to 15%, what we have computed, sigma square, that is variance, is equal to 614, standard deviation is equal to 24.77. Okay. We have to mention this conclusion even in examination, also in all the problems, whatever we compute. Next we'll go to example 3 or problem 3. See, in the question you can see Mr. X has invested in equity shares of Cipla Limited. Its anticipated returns and associated probability are given below. So what we are expected to calculate? We are expected to calculate the rate of return and risk in terms of standard deviation. So what they have given us? They have given us return and the probability of which Cipla Limited. So we are required to calculate the rate of return and risk in terms of standard deviation. First, see students, before solving, first to understand the problem and what exactly they have given us, we need to know that first, okay? It is very simple to calculate, but first you need to thoroughly read the problem, okay? Students, so sorry, understanding the third row, the statement is not R minus R of question whole square, it should be probability multiplied by solution of the same. I'll explain you once again. I have just noted down whatever they have given, that is minus 0.05, minus 10, 5, which is equal to minus 0.20 and 30. So the first and the probability also, the multiplication, whatever they have given, we have just probability multiplied by that is 0.05, that 0.10, small mistake over there, r minus 0.5 whole square, that is not the third column, so we have to just multiply probability multiplied by r. 0.25, 0.3, 0.1 and that is 5 multiplied by 0.15, 10 multiplied by 0.25, we need to calculate r, then 15 multiplied by 0.3 and 20 multiplied by whole square. 0.1. So the third column, what I mentioned, third column will give me 9.5. Remaining all things is perfect. Only the third column, the heading will be probability. That is P into 0.75. Okay. Now 2.5, understand 4.5 and 2 and finally 1.5. Now if I summate the third column, that is summation of r minus e of r whole square, which is equal to 9.5. So after solving for P into R, now the third column is concerned R minus U of R whole square. Okay. So what is this R? R is what? Minus 15. Please understand, minus 15 minus 9.5, that is equal to minus 24.5. Similar way, minus 10 minus 9.5 minus 19.5. 5 minus 9.5 minus 4.5. 10 minus 9.5, 0.5. So what I am doing, R, that is the first column, minus E of R, whatever we have calculated, the summation of that, that is P into R, which we got the value as 9.5. Okay. Then after that we have to square the third column, that is R minus E of R whole square, that is minus 24.5 square. Minus into minus will become plus, so 600.25. I am explaining you the fourth column. Okay, we have to square the third column so that we will get the fourth column. 19.5 square, 380.25. 4.5 square, 0.5 square. 5.5 square is 30.25. 10.5 square is 110.25. 20.5 square is 420.25. Now after doing that, the last column is concerned, we have to multiply probability for the fourth column. That is, if you can see there, 600.25 multiplied by what is the probability? 0.05. So I get 30.012. Similarly 38.02. So I get all these values. So I need to do summation of the fifth column, which I got to be equal to 112.24. So that is my variance. So variance is what? 112.24. Standard deviation is equal to square root of variance, which is equal to 10.59. Okay. So in the similar way how we have solved the previous problem. So we will solve first for company X, the expected return, the variance and the standard deviation. Then after that we will solve the expected return, then the variance and the standard deviation for company Y. Then we will write a conclusion based on our calculation. So first for company X, I'll note down the parameters what they have given in the question. So they have given return and probability. In the first and the second column, I'll write the return and probability as it is, whatever they have given in the question. So returns like 6, 10, 15, 18, 20, 24, and the probability is 0.05 to 0.05. Then the third column, I'll multiply the probability and the return. That is the first and the second column. If I multiply, I'll get the third column, that is P into R. So 0.05 multiplied by 6 is 0.3. Like that I multiply. So I get the value, the last value as 1.2. Then I do the summation of that, I get 15.5. Then in the fourth column, I do R minus R bar. So what is R over there? That is 6 minus R bar. R bar means, what is R bar there? 15.5, right? So which is equal to minus 9.5. Similarly, 10 minus 15.5 is minus 5.5. 15 minus 15.5 is minus 0.5. 18 minus 15.5 is 2.5. 20 minus 4.5, 15.5 is 4.5. Then 24 minus 15.5 is 8.5. Then After that, I need to square it, which will be in the fifth column, r minus r bar whole square. That is minus 9.5 square. If you do, kindly use scientific calculator so that it will be easy for you. Directly you will get the answer. So minus 9.5 square means 90.25. Why? Minus into minus will become plus. Okay. So 90.25. Then the second row you can see r minus r bar whole square. That is the fifth column. What I am telling you, 30.25, 0.25, then 6.25, 20.25, and 72.25. Now we will come to the final column. That is the final work. What we are left is we have to multiply that with the probability p into r minus r bar whole square. So 90.25 multiplied by 0.05. Like that, I'll be multiplying each value of the fourth column with the probability. That is second column. So I get the summation of that, which is equal to 16.33. So what is the 16.33? It is sigma square, which is variance. Okay. So how do you compute standard deviation then? It is simply square root of variance, which is equal to 4.04. In the exactly similar way, we need to calculate for company Y. See here, I have written the conclusion here itself. For company X, expected return is 15.5%, variance is 16.83, and standard deviation is 4.04. So I cannot write risk is less or risk is more. So first we'll compute for company Y, then we'll come to know if the standard deviation is high for company Y, then we say the risk is high over there compared to company X. Okay. Okay, now we'll solve in a similar way for company Y. In the first column, in the second column. So whatever they have given the return and probability in the question, the same thing I have just noted down. So 5 to 20, the first column, the return, and 0.1 to 0.05, the second column, the probability. Then after that, the third column onwards, my computation will start. That is probability multiplied by return. That is the multiplication of the first and the second column values. I get the third column. Then r minus r bar. Sorry, when I summate that, when I do the summation of the third column, I get the value to be equal to 12.25. Then the fourth column is r minus r bar. So when I say r minus r bar, it is 5 minus 12.25. That is minus 7.25, minus 4.25, minus 0.25, 2.75, 5.75, and 7.75. Then I do the squaring of the fourth column, which I get in the fifth column. That is r minus r bar whole square. That is 52.56, 18.06, 0.06, 7.56, 33.06, and 60.06. Students, as and when I am explaining you, try to keep on solving this in your notes. Then only you will be in a position to understand and to solve in a better way, okay, in a faster way. Then the sixth column is concerned, we have to multiply it with probability, right? So whatever we have value we have got in the fifth column, we have to multiply that with the probability. So 52.56 multiplied by 0.1. So like that, if I keep on multiplying, I get the summation of the total values of sixth column, which is equal to 17.07. So what is the 17.07? That is the variance. Please understand, students. So expected return, then variance, as well as standard deviation, that is equal to 4.13. So what I can conclude here, the expected return of securities X is 15.5, which is higher than the expected return of security. That is why the standard deviation of X is lower compared to the standard deviation of Y. So taking this parameter into consideration, it is better to invest in company X. Okay. So when I calculate, I'll once again repeat the third column here in company Y. So 0.5 plus 1.6 plus 3.6 plus 3.75 plus 1.8 plus 1, which is equal to 12.25. Okay. So expected return in the box over there, by mistake I mentioned 17.07. It is not 17.07, it is 12.25, whatever we have calculated. So I request all of you, please solve parallelly along with me whenever I'm explaining, so that you can verify the values. Okay, so whatever I have solved, it is matching with whatever you are solving. And please use scientific calculator, FX82MS Casio, FX82MS Casio, so that your calculations will be faster. So beta calculation. To calculate beta, the returns have to be calculated. The beta and alpha coefficient can be calculated using the below mentioned formula. So beta is equal to, already we have discussed this, n sigma n into summation of x into y minus summation of x into summation of y whole divided by n into summation of x square minus summation of x whole square, whereas alpha is equal to y bar minus beta x bar. So what is x bar and y bar? X bar is equal to summation of x divided by n, and y bar is equal to summation of y divided by n. So as we have discussed in the earlier slide also, the securities return is computed. Like, how do you calculate the today's security return, which is today's price? That means today's closing price minus yesterday's price divided by yesterday's price whole multiplied by 100. And similarly, when we go for today's market return is equal to today's index minus yesterday's index divided by yesterday's index multiplied by 100. Here computation of market return, so that is today's market return is equal to today's index. Index, when I say index, it can be it is what you have taken for your computation. Like you can take Nifty 50 or Sensex or Nifty IT index or Nifty auto index, like that. Okay, minus yesterday's index divided by yesterday's index multiplied by 100. So we'll go for the next type of problem. So we'll consider the daily prices of a stock. That is, for the example, we have taken Bajaj Auto stock and NSE as the index for the period from 5th October to 16th October. The objective of this particular problem is to iterate the computation of beta. Please understand, in this problem, we'll understand how to compute beta. So what they have given us, they have given us date, they have given us NSE index, which I have called it as X, and Bajaj Auto, see, a stock. So beta, it measures the sensitivity of a stock with respect to the index. Here stock is called Bajaj Auto, which is Y, and X is what? The index value. Okay. So we have to calculate the beta. First, to calculate the beta, the returns have to be calculated. Then after that, we use the formula to calculate beta and alpha. So how do you calculate beta? So n into sigma xy minus sigma x into sigma y whole divided by n into sigma x square minus sigma x whole square, and alpha is equal to y bar minus beta x bar. So now we'll first calculate the return, students, by using the formula. So first column, if you can see, index return. So how I have calculated index return? It is today's index minus yesterday's index divided by yesterday's index multiplied by 100. That means what I have taken is today, that is 845.75 minus 904.95 whole divided by 904, that is yesterday's index 904.95. So if you can see in the question, if 10 values they have given, here we will get only 9 entries. Why? Because we are considering for the, that is today's index. When I say today's index, in the question 845.75 minus 904.95 divided by 904.95 multiplied by 100. Why multiplied by 100? Because I get the percentage. Like that I keep on doing for each and every step. So I get minus 6.54, 3.37, minus 3.01, 0.14, minus 1.57, minus 2.28, 3.28. Okay. So like that I keep on doing. Then I do x square, that is column 1 square. So minus 6.54 square, minus into minus, I'll again repeat, it is plus, right? So I get 42.77. Like that, I'll be squaring the first column. Then in the similar way, the third column, I'll be calculating the stock return. So how do I calculate the stock return? It is today's price minus yesterday's price divided by yesterday's price multiplied by 100, right? So that I called it as y, right? Then I do y square, that is minus 4.52 square, which is equal to 20.43. See, positive and negative sign, you should be very careful, students. Minus sign, if I multiply it twice, so minus into minus will always become plus. So like that, okay? Whereas minus into plus is minus, plus into plus is plus. Then after that, in the fifth column, I multiply x as well as y. So if you can multiply the first column as well as the third column, that is minus 6.54 and minus 4.52 is 29.56, right? So how do I get the fifth column? I multiply with the first column as well as the third column. I do the summation of xy, I got the value to be equal to 91.32. Then whatever values we have calculated, see, we have done x square, we have done y, we've done y square as well as xy. So we have taken the summation of that. See, we have summation of x square, we have summation of y, we have summation of y square and summation of xy. So we have to just apply to the formula to compute beta. So when I say n is what? 9. See, if you can calculate 9 multiplied by summation of xy is what? The last column, whatever we have summated, that is 91.32 minus summation of x. See, while taking the values here, the brackets, they play a very, very important role, because when you are computing, I am again repeating, minus into minus becomes plus. So even if you miss plus sign or minus sign, your entire answer will be wrong. So please calculate this very, very carefully and along with me, so that it will be convenient for you to get the correct value, whatever we have solved here. So summation of xy is what? Summation of xy is 91.32 minus, see, summation of x is there. So what is summation of x? Minus 7.09. So minus into minus will become plus, into summation of y. So summation of y is what? 0.78, right? Divided by n into summation x square. Summation x square is what? Directly 82.75 minus summation x whole square. It is summation x means minus 7.09 whole square. We have got the beta value to be equal to 1.19. Clear, students? Then we will solve for alpha. So after solving for beta, students, now we will solve for alpha, which is y bar minus beta into x bar. So as I mentioned earlier only, y bar is equal to summation of y divided by n, and similarly x bar is equal to summation of x divided by n. So what is summation of y? So which we have already calculated, right? Summation of y is how much? 0.78 divided by how many entries are there? 9, which is equal to 0.086. And summation of x divided by n is minus 0.79. So alpha is equal to y bar minus beta x bar. So alpha is equal to, if I put those values over there, I got alpha is equal to 1.02. So I have calculated for beta and alpha. So after calculating alpha and beta, now we have to understand what is the inference of this. So already we have studied, right? If beta is equal to 1, if we got, then 1% change in the market index return causes exactly 1% change in the stock return. It indicates that the stock moves in parallel with the market. See here in the problem, beta describes the relationship between the stock's return and the index return. In the above example or in the above problem, whatever we have solved now, beta indicates that 1% change in NSE index return would cause 1.19% change in the stock return, that is Bajaj Auto stock return. So that is what we have to understand here. And if beta is equal to plus 0.5, 1% change in the market index return causes 0.5% change in the stock return. So the stock is less volatile compared to the market. And if beta is equal to +2, that means 1% change in market index return causes 2% change in the stock return. So the stock return would be more volatile. So when there is a decline of 10% in the market return, the stock with a beta of 2 would give a negative return of 20%. So the stocks with more than 1 beta value is considered to be risky. Please understand this. Now if I still want to continue and find out the correlation coefficient, students, that is, the correlation means what? If the stock market moves by 1%, how much my stock return will move, whether it moves in the positive direction or whether it moves in the negative direction. So either it can be positively correlated, or it can be negatively correlated, or sometimes it can be neutral. So as I earlier mentioned to all of you, the correlation coefficient measures the nature and extent of relationship between the stock market and the index return and the stock market return in particular period. So R, we use the letter R for correlation coefficient, which is equal to n into summation of x into y minus summation x into summation y whole divided by square root of n into summation x square minus summation x whole square multiplied by square root of n into summation y square minus summation y whole square. So whatever values we have got, summation of xy is 91.32, please put here. Summation of x into summation of y. So if we keep on putting, we got the correlation coefficient value as 0.79. So 0.79 is the correlation coefficient value. Then the square of the correlation coefficient is the coefficient of determination also. Sometimes in the problem they even ask what to calculate the coefficient of determination. So it gives the percentage of variation in the stock's return explained by the variation in terms of market return. Okay. So if I continue further to compute, after calculating the coefficient of correlation, if I want to calculate the coefficient of determination, so how do you compute? It gives the percentage of variation in the stock's return explained by the variation in the market's return. Say R square is what? 0.79 whole square, which is equal to 0.62. So what is the interpretation from this, students? The interpretation is that 62% of variation in stock's return is explained by the variation in the NSE index return. Okay, that means 62% of variation, whatever the stock varies, is explained directly by the variation in the NSE's index return. Okay, so in this problem, what all we have calculated? We have calculated beta, we have calculated alpha, then we have calculated the correlation coefficient, then we have calculated the coefficient of determination. Okay. Okay, students, my request to all of you is whenever I'm explaining the problem, you should have your notes and keep on solving parallelly, so that whatever values I'm putting here in the problem, so that you should be solving accordingly, so that we can match with the final answers. And the reference textbook, what I'll be informing you is, please refer Punitavati Pandian. Okay. Now we'll go to question number 6. That is the returns on securities. That is A and B are given below. So what they have given in the problem, they have given us the probability and security A and security B, that is the returns. So what they have asked us to compute, so given the security of, give the security of your preference, the security has to be selected on the basis of return and risk. So what do we have to compute? We have to compute the expected return of A and expected return of B, as well as standard deviation of A and B. So first we'll calculate the return of expected return of A. So how do you compute? I multiply R into P, since plus R into P2 plus R3 into P3 directly. Instead of doing summation, I can even do like that, right? So security A, if I say 4 into 0.5 plus 2 into 0.4 plus 0 into 0.1. I get expected return of security A to be equal to how much? 2.8. Similarly, I do it for security B. I get the expected return of security B to be equal to 1.5. So based on expected return, what I can say, security A's return is high compared to B, which is equal to 2.8. Right, all of you? Now, one more thing they have asked us to calculate, that is risk. Risk means what? Computation of standard deviation. So first, sigma is equal to square root of summation of I is equal to 1 to n probability multiplied by r minus expected return whole square. First we'll compute for security A, then we'll go for security B. So for security A, as you can see in the first column, I have first and the second column, I have written the return and the probability as it is, whatever they have given in the problem. See, R is 4, the first column 420, probability 0.5, 0.4 and 0.1. Now what is required for me? R minus E of R whole square. That is 4 minus expected return of A is what? 2.8 whole square, which is 1.44. So directly I am solving there only. Okay. Similarly, 2 minus 2.8 whole square, which is equal to 0.64. I am solving the third column now. And how about the fourth column? I multiply the second column with the third column. That is 0.5 multiplied by 1.44. Like that. Okay. I get the variance of security A, which is 1.76. Then standard deviation of security A, how do I compute? It is simply equal to square root of 1.76, which is 1.33. Then I take security B. So R and P, the first and the second column, whatever they have given in the problem, I have written here. Then in the similar way, R minus E of R whole square, that is 0 minus 1.5 whole square, which is equal to 2.25. Similarly, I calculate for the other two rows. Then the fourth column is how do I compute? That is the multiplication of probability multiplied by third column. So I get the summation of P into R minus E of R whole square, that is variance square, which is equal to 2.25. Now how do you calculate standard deviation of B? Which is simply equal to square root of variance. Square root of 2.25 is how much? 1.5. Now after calculating the expected return, the variance and the risk, I conclude that in security A, the return is high and risk is low. So security A, or the company A, is preferable for investment. Clear, students? This is how I can conclude. See, sometimes in the examination you will be having the 4 securities like A, B, C and D. So you need to compute the expected return of each security as well as the variance of each security and the standard deviation of each security. So based on expected return and the risk, you need to tell that which security is best for investment. Okay. So now we will see. See, as I mentioned, the question has been given the 4 stocks for investment. The rates of return and probabilities are also given, like A, B, C and D. The return and probability here, don't get confused, students. They have given in terms of percentage. Okay. See, R is what? The rate of return minus 30, 0, 30, 70 for A they have given, and probability is 20, 40, 30, 10. So if they give in percentage, we will see how to solve. Okay. So first solution is concerned, expected return is equal to probability that is R1 plus probability 2, that is R2, plus probability 3 into R3 plus probability 4 into R4. Then for first security A, that is expected return is equal to, you can take directly minus 0.3 multiplied by 0.2. Why? Because they have given in percentage. No, I have converted into decimal. It will be easy for me. The number will be less. So if I keep on doing like that, for security A, I get the value to be equal to 0.1. Similarly, for security B, I get the value to be equal to 0.08. For security C, I get the value to be equal to 0.2. For security D, I get the value equal to 0.08. Okay. So what I did, expected return is equal to, I am multiplying the probability with the return. Okay. Then now it is we have to calculate the variance as well as the standard deviation, right? It is very simple, students. R. So I have converted minus 30 divided by 100, that is minus 0.3, 0, 0.3, 0.7. I am first solving for probability, that is security A, and similarly I write the probability. Now what I do, I directly, since you have already used for it, I do R. First, what I used to do, R minus E of R, then square of that, then multiply that with the probability, right? But since you are already used for that, while solving in the notes, students, for you, the third column should be R minus E of R, then R minus E of R whole square, the fourth column, then the fifth column would be probability multiplied by R1 minus E of R whole square, right? So here, since you have already solved that, so directly I have used here minus 0.32, I got the value 0.004, 0.012, 0.036. When I do the summation of that, I got the variance of security A to be equal to 0.084. Similarly, the variance of security B is equal to 0.0256. Variance of security C is equal to 0.084. And variance of security D equal to 0.0086. Right? So based on this, we can conclude that which security is risky. Like in the order of return, C ranks first. See if we can see there, A falls second, but when you consider the risk level, both the securities have equal level of risk, that is variance 0.084. Hence the security C with higher rate of return in the same level of the risk is preferred. So after doing that, you have to even do a square root to calculate the standard deviation of A, standard deviation of B, standard deviation of C, and standard deviation of D. Okay. So based on risk return parameter, we have to conclude that which security is best for investment. So here I have taken only variance, but the next step is considered. You have to solve in your notes also. That's a small assignment for you. You have to calculate standard deviation of all the securities. Okay, but even though if you calculate in the order, you should also be knowing the risk return parameters. Based on that only, you have to select the best security for the investment purpose. Okay. So after understanding that, next we'll go to the problem. Sometimes they'll give you the market return as well as the company return. So they'll ask us to calculate the beta value of the company, and see the second part here, B part, if the market return is 2, what would be the script return, right? So what they have given us, index return means what? RM means market return, and script return means what? RI. Okay. So we'll solve the problem accordingly. So first what I've written, RM, that is index return, 0.5 to 0.7. The summation of RM is what? 5.4. Next is RM minus RM bar, which is in the second column, minus 0.10, minus 0.10, plus 0.2, minus 0.1, plus 0.2, minus 0.2, and plus 0.1. The third column, I am squaring the second column. So I get summation of RM minus RM bar whole square to be equal to 0.16. Then in the similar way, I take the script return, that is 0.3 to 0.6. The summation of RI is how much? 4.5. Okay. Next is RI minus RI bar, which is equal to minus 0.2 plus 0.1. And the next column is RI minus RI bar whole square. The summation of RI minus RI bar whole square is how much? 0.16. Now very important is I need to multiply RM minus RM bar, that is the second column, with the fifth column, that is RI minus RI bar. Summation of that will give me 0.12. Okay. Now how do you compute beta in the problems like this? Beta is equal to summation of RI minus RI bar multiplied by RM minus RM bar whole divided by summation of RM minus RM bar whole square. So I have already calculated everything here. I need to just apply here to get the correct answer, okay, which is equal to 0.12 divided by 0.16, which is 0.75 for me. So how do I you should be confused here, like RM bar is equal to how much? Summation of RM divided by N, which is equal to 5.4 divided by 9, which is equal to 0.6. Similarly, RI bar is how much? That is summation of RI divided by N. That is summation RI bar equal to 4.5 divided by 9, which is equal to 0.5. So RI minus RI bar is equal to beta into RM minus RM bar. So RI is minus 0.5 is equal to 0.75 multiplied by RM minus 0.6. Ri is equal to 0.05 plus 0.75 Rm. So the beta value in this problem is 0.75. So after calculating the beta value, now we need to calculate Ri. Ri is equal to how we can calculate alpha plus beta into Rm, right? So they have given in the problem that the B part, if you can see, the market return is 2. What could be the scrip return? So alpha is 0.05 plus 0.75 into 2. So Ri is equal to 1.55. Right, students? Okay, students, thank you so much for watching this video. So during the Google Meet live classes, we'll solve still few more problems. Then the concept will be strong with you. Thank you so much.